The little girl couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She stood on the corner of Maple Street holding a hand-painted sign that read, "Bike for sale, $20, next to a pink bicycle with streamers on the handlebars and a white wicker basket. When the convoy of Hell's Angels rumbled past, she stepped into the street, her small voice barely cutting through the thunder of engines. "Please, mister, buy my bike. My mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." The bikers stopped, all 15 of them. And when their leader, a man named Axe who'd seen combat in 3 countries and buried more brothers than he could count, knelt down to ask why she was selling her bike, the little girl's answer made his blood run cold. "Because the man who fired my mommy said, 'We don't deserve help.'" And when Axe asked who that man was, when the little girl pointed to the biggest building in town with the name Garrison Industries in gold letters, he stood up slowly and made a decision that would either save this family or destroy his own freedom. Oak Ridge was the kind of town that looked perfect from the highway. Clean streets, manicured lawns, a downtown with coffee shops and boutiques that catered to people who'd never missed a meal in their lives. But drive 3 miles past Main Street, past the industrial park and the old textile mill that had closed 10 years ago, and you'd find the neighborhoods that the town liked to pretend didn't exist. That's where Sarah Bennett lived with her daughter Lily. In a rental house with peeling paint and a front porch that sagged in the middle. Sarah was 34 years old and looked 50. Working 3 jobs for 6 years will do that to a person. Will hollow out your cheeks and put shadows under your eyes and make your hands shake from exhaustion that never quite goes away. She'd been a quality control supervisor at Garrison Industries, the largest employer in Oak Ridge. Made $43,000 a year. Not wealthy, but enough. Enough to keep Lily in a good school district. Enough to put food on the table without counting every penny. Enough to occasionally buy her daughter something that wasn't absolutely necessary. Then Marcus Garrison decided to maximize profits. He'd inherited the company from his father 5 years ago and immediately started cutting costs. First, the pension contributions. Then, the health benefits. Then, the wages. And finally, the employees themselves. Sarah was laid off on a Tuesday morning, along with 47 other workers. Given a severance package that amounted to 2 weeks' pay and a form letter thanking her for her service. She'd gone to Marcus's office to beg. Not for herself, she'd said. For Lily, just a few more weeks, so she could find another job. So she could keep the insurance that covered Lily's asthma medication. Marcus had looked at her from behind his mahogany desk in his $1,000 suit and said 5 words that Sarah would never forget. "You should have planned better." That was 8 months ago. Sarah had burned through her savings in 6 weeks, lost the health insurance, started rationing Lily's medication, applied for 300 jobs and got 7 interviews and 0 offers. The town was small. Garrison Industries was the only major employer. And Marcus had quietly let it be known that anyone who hired his former employees would lose his business. So Sarah cleaned houses for cash, babysat on weekends, sold everything that wasn't essential. Her jewelry, her furniture, her car. And still it wasn't enough. The rent was overdue. The electricity had been shut off twice. And for the past 3 days, Sarah had given Lily every scrap of food in the house, while she herself ate nothing. On the morning of September 23rd, Sarah collapsed in the kitchen. Just fainted from hunger and exhaustion and the desperate hopelessness that had been crushing her for months. Lily found her mother on the floor and screamed. Called 911 with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The paramedics came, checked Sarah's vitals, said she was severely malnourished and needed to go to the hospital. Sarah refused. Couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford to miss the house cleaning job she had scheduled that afternoon. Couldn't afford anything except to keep moving forward, because stopping meant dying. The paramedics left. And Lily, who was 7 years old and understood more than any 7-year-old should, made a decision. She wheeled her bicycle out to the corner of Maple Street. The bike her mother had given her for her 6th birthday, back when things were less desperate. Back when Sarah still had hope. Lily made a sign out of cardboard and markers. Wrote "Bike for sale, $20" in her best handwriting, and waited for someone to stop. The Hells Angels weren't supposed to be in Oak Ridge that day. They were passing through on their way to a veterans memorial 3 towns over. 15 bikers from the Iron Brotherhood chapter, led by a man named Alexander Axe Morrison. Axe was 56 years old, with a gray beard and eyes that had seen too much death. He'd done 3 tours in Afghanistan, Lost half his unit to an IED in Kandahar. Came home with shrapnel in his hip and memories that woke him screaming at 3 in the morning. The Brotherhood had saved his life. Given him purpose when the VA couldn't. Given him family when his own had given up on him. They were riding in formation when they saw the little girl step into the street. Axe raised his fist. The universal signal to stop. 15 motorcycles came to a halt. Engines idling. Leather-clad men watching as this small child approached them with a cardboard sign and desperation in her eyes. "Please, mister," Lily said to Axe. "Buy my bike. My mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." The world went very quiet. Even the motorcycle engines seemed to hush. Axe dismounted slowly, knelt down so he was eye level with Lily. Behind him, his brothers did the same. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Axe asked gently. "Lily. And where's your mommy now?" Lily pointed to a house 3 blocks away. The one with peeling paint that looked like it was held together by stubbornness and desperation. "Why hasn't she eaten?" Axe asked, though he already knew the answer. He'd seen this story before. Different details, same ending. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Because the man who fired her said, "We don't deserve help." He said mommy should have planned better, but she did plan. She worked so hard. And then he took her job and nobody else will hire her, and now we don't have money for food. "Who fired her?" Axe asked, his voice very calm in a way that suggested violence was being carefully controlled. Lily pointed to the skyline. To the tallest building in Oak Ridge. To the gold letters that spelled Garrison Industries. "Mr. Garrison?" Lily said. "He fired mommy and 47 other people. Mommy said he did it to buy a new boat." Axe looked at his brothers. Saw the same cold fury he felt reflected in their faces. They'd all been poor at some point. All been desperate. All been ground under the heel of men who valued profit over people. A biker named Diesel spoke up. He was the youngest of the group at 32, with tattoos covering both arms and a daughter Lily's age back home. "How much do you need?" he asked Lily. $20, Lily said hopefully. "That's how much food mommy said we need for the week." Diesel pulled out his wallet. Handed Lily a $100 bill. "Keep your bike, kiddo. Buy your mommy groceries." But Axe wasn't done. He stood up, looked at the Garrison Industries building, made a decision that would either save this family or cost him everything. "We're going to talk to Mr. Garrison," Axe said quietly. The Iron Brotherhood rolled up to Garrison Industries at 11:37 in the morning. 15 motorcycles parking in the reserved executive spaces. 15 bikers walking through the glass doors into a lobby that was all marble and money and intimidation designed to make working people feel small. The receptionist went pale. "Can I help you?" she stammered. "We're here to see Marcus Garrison," Axe said politely. "Do you have an appointment?" "No. But he'll see us." Something in Axe's voice suggested that this wasn't a request. The receptionist picked up her phone with shaking hands, called up to the executive floor, whispered frantically. "Hung up. He says he's busy," she said. "Then we'll wait," Axe replied. He sat down in one of the expensive leather chairs. His brothers did the same. 15 Hell's Angels sitting quietly in a corporate lobby, making absolutely no threats, breaking no laws, just waiting. 20 minutes later, security arrived. 3 guards in cheap uniforms with radios and stern expressions. "You need to leave," the head guard said. "Why?" Axe asked mildly. "We're just sitting here. Last I checked, that's not illegal. You're making people uncomfortable." "Good," Axe said. "Discomfort leads to conversation. And we really need to have a conversation with Mr. Garrison." The guards didn't know what to do. They couldn't arrest people for sitting quietly. Couldn't physically remove them without starting a fight. They'd lose badly. So, they called the police. Officer David Chen arrived 15 minutes later. He was 49 years old and had known Axe for 20 years. They'd served together in Afghanistan. David had been Army. Axe had been Marines. But war makes brothers out of everyone. "Axe," David said tiredly. "What are you doing?" "Seeking an audience," Axe replied. "With the man who's starving families in his own town." David looked at the bikers, looked at the security guards, looked at the corporate employees watching nervously from behind glass walls. "You can't force someone to meet with you." "No," Axe agreed. "But we can wait until he gets curious enough to ask why we're here." They waited for 3 hours. The Iron Brotherhood sitting in perfect silence while the corporate world buzzed around them. Employees whispered. Executives complained. The story spread through the building like wildfire. Hell's Angels in the lobby, refusing to leave. Nobody knew why. Finally, at 3 o'clock, Marcus Garrison came down. He was 42 years old, handsome in the way that money can buy. Perfect teeth, perfect hair. A suit that cost more than Sarah Bennett made in a month. He walked toward Axe with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no in his life. "I'm calling the police," Marcus announced. "Already here," David said from the corner where he'd been watching. "And they're not doing anything illegal." Marcus's jaw tightened. "What do you want?" Axe stood, pulled out Lily's cardboard sign. The one that said, "Bike for sale, $20. Placed it on the reception desk. "I want to talk about Sarah Bennett," Axe said quietly. "And the 47 other people you fired so you could maximize profits." "That's business," Marcus said dismissively. "I don't owe explanations to you. Owe an explanation to a 7-year-old girl who tried to sell her bike so her mother could eat," Axe interrupted. His voice was still quiet, still controlled. But everyone in the lobby could feel the rage underneath. Marcus looked at the sign, at the child's handwriting. Something flickered across his face. Maybe shame, maybe just irritation. "I gave them severance," Marcus said. 2 weeks' pay," Axe replied. "For people who'd worked here for years. While you bought a yacht? While you renovated your summer house? While people who built your company starved? That's capitalism," Marcus said. "If they wanted security, they should have planned better." Axe finished. "Yeah. That's what you told Sarah when she begged you for a few more weeks. When she explained that her daughter needs asthma medication. When she asked for basic human decency." Marcus's face went red. "I don't have to justify business decisions too." "You're right," Axe said. "You don't have to justify anything. But we're going to sit in your lobby until you do. We'll sit here all day. All week. All month if necessary. We're not breaking any laws. We're just waiting for you to remember what it's like to be human." "You can't do that," Marcus sputtered. "Watch us," Diesel said from his chair. The standoff lasted until 6 o'clock. The Iron Brotherhood sitting quietly while Marcus fumed. While security paced. While the media got wind of the story and cameras started gathering outside. Hell's Angels stage, peaceful protest at Garrison Industries. The headlines wrote themselves. By 7 o'clock, Marcus's lawyer had arrived. By 8, his PR team. All of them explaining that this was a disaster. That the optics were terrible. That motorcycle clubs staging protests made the company look like villains. At 9 o'clock, Marcus Garrison made a decision. He called a press conference. Announced that Garrison Industries would be rehiring all 48 laid-off employees. Would be restoring their benefits. Would be creating a hardship fund for employees facing financial difficulties. Would be donating $50,000 to the local food bank, he said. It was always his intention. Said he'd been working on the plan for weeks. Nobody believed him. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that Sarah Bennett would have her job back. Would have insurance for Lily's medication. Would be able to eat. The Iron Brotherhood left at 9:43. Rode through Oak Ridge to Sarah's house. Found her on the porch with Lily, both of them eating sandwiches that Diesel had bought earlier. "You're going back to work Monday," Axe told Sarah. "Full pay, full benefits." Sarah started crying. Put her hands over her face and sobbed in a way that suggested she'd been holding it in for 8 months. "How?" she whispered. "We asked nicely," Axe said. "And we didn't leave until we got an answer." Lily ran to Axe, threw her small arms around his waist. "Thank you for not buying my bike," she said. Axe knelt down, looked at this little girl who'd tried to save her mother the only way she knew how. "You keep that bike," he said gently. "And you remember that asking for help isn't weakness. It's strength." The Iron Brotherhood rode out of Oak Ridge at midnight. 15 motorcycles disappearing into the darkness, like they'd never been there at all. But they left something behind. A town that had watched in silence as a corporation crushed its own people. A town that had learned, finally, that silence is complicity. Sarah Bennett went back to work the following Monday. Marcus Garrison never spoke to her directly again, but she kept her job. Kept her benefits, kept her daughter fed and healthy. And Lily? She kept her pink bicycle with the streamers and the white wicker basket. Rode it to school every day. Sometimes, when she passed the corner where she'd tried to sell it, she'd remember the bikers who'd stopped, who'd listened, who'd fought a battle she couldn't fight herself. 10 years later, Lily Bennett graduated from college. First in her family, became a social worker specializing in helping families facing economic hardship. On her graduation day, 15 motorcycles showed up. The Iron Brotherhood, riding in formation, parking in the lot at the university. Axe was 66 now. Gray beard longer, more scars, but the same eyes. "We're proud of you, kid," he said simply. Lily hugged him. "Kept that bike," she said. "Still ride it sometimes?" "Good," Axe replied. "Some things are worth holding on to. Not because of what they are, but because of what they remind us. That asking for help is brave. That standing up for others is necessary. And that sometimes, when the world tells you to accept injustice, the right answer is to sit down and refuse to move until justice comes looking for you. That's not just a story about a bike. That's a story about dignity. About the difference between power and strength. About how 15 people who society dismisses as outlaws can teach a town what brotherhood actually means. Sarah and Lily Bennett are doing fine now. Better than fine. And somewhere in Marcus Garrison's office, in a frame nobody else knows about, is a cardboard sign that says, "Bike for sale, $20. A reminder that some prices are too high. And some debts can never be fully repaid. If this story about a little girl who sold hope and the brotherhood that bought it back for her moved you, hit subscribe. Because sometimes, the people society fears are the ones who show up when society fails. Drop a comment about a time someone stood up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself, or about a moment when you witnessed real courage in action. Smash that like button if you believe that justice isn't always delivered in courtrooms. Sometimes it's delivered by 15 bikers sitting quietly in a corporate lobby until greed blinks first. Subscribe because we tell stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things and about how kindness can roar louder than any Harley engine.